Yep, great to be here, Todd. And yeah, the world is, it's hard to even report. I think one of the things that our viewers will begin to notice if they haven't already, and will continue to reveal the patterns and relationships that link really Ukraine to Venezuela,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, not only link it for the logic of why both of them matter, and the logic of why we're seeing this this hyper emotional reaction and counterintuitive reaction from globalists and the left about Venezuela, while at the same time they continue to do what we've been reporting on in Ukraine, which is sabotage the peace talks, try to draw them out. And probably one of the kind of complexities of this thing is Russia. As you're going to hear, we now know that a little more about what was surrounding. You remember in our special episode, I talked about the air defense,
Mm-hmm.
the anti-aircraft being turned off. Well, we now know that Russia had just installed almost $3 billion worth of technology, latest S-400 radars, just some of their best stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because, you'll hear some of these Democrats say that, again, Trump is a vassal of Putin. He does whatever Putin wants. But this does not cohere with their argument, and the Russian reaction was, as expected, severe. Medvedev came out, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But
So let me interrupt you there. Do you think we'll get access to that Russian technology? I mean, that's a big question, right?
Yeah, it is. I think how this thing is playing out, and that's why I'm going to continue to be a bit circumspect.
Mm-hmm.
The sources on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
what the alliances they've established within the Venezuelan government. It's very important to not imply anything right now, because everything rides on this transition being not just
Yes.
smooth, but being fair for the people of Venezuela. And I think the hands off, the fact there's no boots on the ground, combat boots on the ground, is proof positive that this was an arrest
Mm-hmm.
with some good intelligence, and intelligence means relationships, but it's not hard to understand. I used in our special broadcast Hitler as an
Mm-hmm.
analogy. Hitler and Bin Laden. Imagine if we had captured them before they started their worldwide jihads
Mm-hmm.
against humanity. We should, and in retrospect, we should have on both, but we didn't act. So we did here. And again, the proof of why we did it continues to make sense. And I think what you're going to see in the coming weeks is going to emphasize that even more.
Let me ask you, I'm concerned about the court process. There's a lot of concern. He didn't go to Gitmo as a military tribunal. He went to New York, Southern District. And I don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
So I mean, there already looks to be some weaknesses, or at least not weaknesses in the case, but in how they are putting it together. I don't know. It's concerning. So why would you go through all that effort and then have him released?
Yeah, it's a good question, Todd. I'm out of both of our wheelhouses. I think we're
Yeah,
not lawyers.
sure.
We're going to show in a minute the State Department wanted poster, which outlines the charges against him, and I can tell you, talking, just hearing a lawyer talk about it yesterday, this is not some sketchy case. The evidence against him is physical. It's overwhelming. He's in hot water. But what you said is exactly right. if there's one of these lawfare judges in charge, then I'm not sure what's going to happen or what the strategy is for bringing him to New York. I think on a legal basis, it was the FBI office in New York, the Long Island office, that filed the charges. So it might have been they have no choice. They had no choice but to bring him there. And then I've read, but I have not had it corroborated, that the piece about the election interference is why they brought him to the U.S. instead of Gitmo. And how that plays out legally, again, I'm not sure, but I heard that yesterday by two different legal experts who were discussing the case.
Well, we've been involved here at this network since 2020. Literally, one of the reasons we were banned was we posted a video by Russ Ramsland in Dallas showing the elections being flipped live, real time, before the election. And then all for the last 5 years, we've been just spot on that. So I'm saying that because the audience, the election stuff is real. I mean, they were running our elections out of Venezuela. There's no doubt about it. So,
yeah. And people have to internalize that. And when they think about this, and again, we're going to show the reactions, and they're going to keep coming. And the paid protesters are starting to, leak out. Again, it's hilarious. I just saw the one in New York. Everyone in there, every protester was about 75 years old.
Yes.
None of them had any passion. They just held these signs and walked around, checking their watches because they're on the clock. It's insanity. But it bears watching because, again, they're trying to use the same propaganda and manipulation techniques we've been talking about, which is just lie, no matter how outrageous, and then inundate people with those lies. Right off the bat, they'll capture the majority of people who are, you'd call on the left in the U.S., and because they're all suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. And you see this around the globe too. If you've got TDS and you hear anything remotely critical of Trump, you're going to jump right to that.
Yes.
You're going to, switch your belief system to 100% in, and you're not going to listen to any counter information, no matter how empirical, no matter how in your face it is. You're just going to continue to be a victim of your reptilian brain, which is where Trump derangement syndrome is housed in these people.
So just let me interrupt. This is the Manhattan.press, our New York paper, our business paper, but he was brought into Manhattan yesterday. If anybody's curious on how that went down, you can see all the videos of the protests Pete is talking about at the Manhattan.press. All right, back to you.
Yeah. So just real quick on Venezuela, and then we'll go to Ukraine, kind of split them. And then again, you'll see how they're related. One quick update that I think is significant as to what we're just talking about. A Venezuelan military intelligent whistleblower, I can confirm this, has provided evidence, physical evidence, that both NGOs and political party members from across the globe, that's the way it was stated, have been outsourcing election and rigging technology like Smartmatic and Dominion directly from Venezuela. So again, we talked about all these Eastern European elections. We've talked about South Korea. We've talked about Colombia. This is all over the globe, folks. And there are individuals who are despotic individuals leading countries, torturing their people who were never voted into office. And again, just a little slice of that we experienced from 20 to 24. The implications of that are on a humanitarian global scale. The spastic pullout from Afghanistan and collapse of Afghanistan, which was done to move those assets into Ukraine for what the Democratic Party at the time believed was the chance of a lifetime to take down Putin. And that's what they were doing. They were convinced, as we've talked about, that by applying pressure, by continuing to eradicate ethnic Russians from Donbass in eastern Ukraine, this would lead to a collapse of Russia, the most absurd supposition I think I've ever heard. And that's what was behind all this. So, today we're on day 3 of after American forces extracted Nicolas Maduro from his fortified compound. And again, $2 to $3 billion of Russian military hardware went silent. So what do we learn from that? You kind of touched on this in our special report, Todd. The mission, it's called Absolute Resolve, fundamentally rewrites the physics of global power. And there's 3 reasons for that. First, the United States demonstrated that 5th generation air power combined with cyberkinetic warfare can neutralize any conventional defense system currently deployed outside the nuclear powers, especially, but based on what you just saw and the fact that Russia provided its latest equipment, you might want to include the nuclear powers also.
Let me ask you, do you think there's any chance that Russia made a deal with Trump and let him go in there and turned it off?
I do think, I don't think that he made a deal, but I think that Putin understands the global implications. He would have been fine if we had just let them alone, because he's clearly, there's something in it for Russia down there. I'm not sure what. They don't need oil. And why they would ever want oil from South America when they have it,
well, it could be very similar to the 1960, the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we backed off Cuba, but they backed off, or vice versa. We backed off Turkey and they backed off Cuba. So it could be Ukraine and Venezuela. Hemisphere.
Yeah, let me tell you another possibility, Todd, that Russia's involvement in Venezuela is much like our involvement in Ukraine. Yes, and we're going to get to that in a second. Right now, our involvement in Ukraine is almost covert to the U.S. government, the Trump administration, because the CIA, as the New York Times just reported, is apparently still operating, still providing intelligence, and they're doing it much like the KGB, because this is like in their DNA. The whole Russia thing, the whole, continue to take down, nothing has changed to them. They've been indoctrinated with, Russia's the enemy, and this is what they do. And I think for hardcore KGB people, they've been indoctrinated that, the US is the enemy. And so despite Putin maybe saying, hey, me and Trump, there's a real potential for normalization of a relationship with America, his KGB side could be just like our CIA and say, yeah, we get that, but you won't be here the whole time. We still got to carry on what we do. We're also, independent from you. So we're going to keep doing what we want to do. So that's my thoughts on it. But
different states kind of fighting different battles, right?
Yeah. But I think the big takeaway from what we just said, there's a lot of uncertainty, but that uncertainty just blows up all these conspiracy accusations by the Democrats in America and globalists in general that, Trump is this puppet of Russia, or that he does whatever Putin says, and vice versa. I'm not sure what they're saying lately, but it just reveals the complexity, the reality of the complexity of this relationship, and that nothing fits across time and across the globe. Things happen because there's different actors. There's very little homogeneity in strategy and tactics that you see going on in the world today.
So I had another point I wanted to bring up before you move on. I noticed several weeks ago that the U.S. had essentially reverse engineered the Shahed drone the Iranians produced and started building them in mass on the U.S. side. And you remember that report that they were moving a drone squadron to the Middle East with these Shahed drones, which is an Iranian development. I heard or I read that there's evidence that they use those in Venezuela against some of the targets. That's the sound of the motor, like this, whining wail as it comes in, was very similar to the Shahed drone. So that's fascinating to me. Kind of, they stole our Predator drones, and we're stealing their Shaheds.
Yeah, well, the Shahed was designed off of a drone that crashed in Baluchistan, which is, borders Afghanistan to the south and to the east, but it was in the south where it crashed. Obama would not allow the Air Force to destroy it. Anyone who knows Baluchistan's like talking about Montana or, the Pacific Northwest in Canada. There's no one there. There's no people. It's one of the most it's one of the wildest untouched areas of the world. So like we could have flown in on a helicopter and destroyed it, but Obama did not want to do it. He thought it would show some wrong impression to other people, and the Iranians went in.
Technology.
Well, the Iranians went in, picked it up whole. It basically was not even destroyed. I saw the pictures of it, and then they based the design of their current drones off that. And then Russia took that. And to be truthful, aerodynamics, as you are an expert on, are aerodynamics. So you could say you're copying the fact that there's two wings, a tail, and a pointy nose.
There's reason the planes all look the same.
Right, right. So, the second big takeaway is back to that Russia thing. They revealed through action and technology rather than rhetoric that deterrence guarantees to their client states are pretty much worthless or not what they've been advertising. And that's pretty serious.
What did the Chinese have in there? Do you know what their technology was?
Yeah, I heard it was radar technology. So, it might have been some sort of, cutting edge stuff that detects stealth or whatever. But, I've been told it was the same. I just don't have high resolution knowledge like I do on the Russia side.
Okay.
So the final thing is just back to that Medvedev. He articulated that in a world where the United States can do this to anyone at any time for any reason, nuclear weapons, it just reinforces nuclear weapons are the only guarantee of sovereignty.
I had somebody who's of Russian descent call me and say, they could do that to Putin. It was like an epiphany. I'm like, well, they could actually, if, it would be a hell of a lot harder, but it's possible.
Yep. Well, and we wouldn't, but you're right. That's the savviness of Russia. They understand when you're talking about the United States. Once again, you're not talking about a unified perspective or strategy. They know how tenuous it is because they just lived through it too. Trump was overthrown. Putin called that when it happened. Russia still has no issues with political correctness and understands that election was thrown. Yes. So they understand that there's this schizophrenia of American policy and that it's tenuous, which I think is part of why they're so positive about Trump's initiatives and Wickoff's and the potential economic normalization of relationships between our two countries, so that you can begin to neutralize that every 4 or 8 or 12 years, complete change in relationship. And of course, if Trump can make this happen, which we've been advocating for a while, then it'll go a long way toward preventing that the next time a crazed Democrat is able to take power, which hopefully is a long, long time away.
Yeah, I completely agree. We got to get these elections fixed, man. Yeah, all this is great in Venezuela and Ukraine, but dude, they're right here at home. They're in Georgia. These machines are sitting in Georgia, and the election's a year away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
So again, Todd, you know, you're right. And that's why I listened to your segment before this. It's so great you're still on that. And folks, we can't forget, that's what these globalists and leftists want. They want to bury this in the past. And we can't let them do that. There's got to be accountability. We've got to create a system that can never be hacked and rigged again, like it was in 2020. And that requires action. You know, you've heard a lot of people saying the time is now. We have to do it because I think what you're seeing right now is this dragging your feet by the EU and the globalists. And we'll show some proof of that, because they still believe, and I'm sure the Democratic Party does, that, you know, hey, we can pull this off in 26. If we can just get the Senate and Congress, we can impeach Trump and go right back to neutralizing him like they did from 18 to 20. And then, you know, manipulate the system to get a Democratic president in, and we'll get back to the insanity we went through already. So
I've got a bunch of stuff to throw up here. Should I just?
Yeah. So Todd, I think the first thing is the State Department reward program. If you have that, just put it up, because it's really detailed, and you know, it reveals a bunch of things. The charges are not superfluous charges. There's a thing came out today that everyone's saying, oh, now they changed it. They're not charging him with being the head of the cartel of the Suns. Well, that's not in here. And that would be almost impossible to prove anyway. But what is in here, what this outlines, is the physical evidence that they have, which is just overwhelming. It can't, you know, there's no, like, it's so black and white that even a non-lawyer can walk up and go, you know, it's an open and shut case. And this has been built, you know, you can see there's been multiple. It started at 15 million, went up to 50 million. And when it started in 2020, as you're going to see in a moment, the entire Democratic Party was behind it 100%. In fact, criticizing Trump, that he wasn't doing anything because he's in bed with Putin, and he allows Putin and people like Maduro to do what they want. So this is good. Let's go ahead and start. This is 2020 Schumer. I can't see that. If you can read what he said. Is it a video?
Yeah, it is. I'll play it.
Yeah.
Wants to do or is doing, but his actions belie his words. Maybe the best metaphor was his claim to bring democracy to Venezuela. There was a big policy there. It flopped. If the policy was working, Juan Guaido wouldn't be in the balcony here. He'd be in Venezuela. He'd be sitting in the president's palace, or at least waging a fight to win. He's here. And the president brags about his Venezuela policy? Give us a break. He hasn't brought an end to the Maduro regime.
Wow. Okay. This one's good too.
Sorry, I'm just rolling with these here.
Yeah.
When you're ready. This is another
Go
video.
ahead. Yep.
In Venezuela, Maduro, who is what Donald Trump wants to be. He wants to be the kind of guy that doesn't matter whether you win or lose, you get to stay in power. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. And Maduro is staying in power by blowing up the rule of law in Venezuela and co-opting the military for his political purposes. That's what Donald Trump is capable of, and that is not American. That is not American in any shape or form.
One more here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, now this one, just to build this up a little, she actually does what journalists are supposed to do. She confronts, that's Chris Murphy from Connecticut. Murphy's been all over the internet.
He's a huge communist, literally.
Yeah, and he's become kind of the the talking head, the face of the Democratic Party. I think they're trying to get someone who's not over 70, as the talking head. But this guy is a pathological liar. And when you hear her question, then I'll read a little bit about what he said, the accusations he made against Trump on Venezuela.
In 2019, you wrote an op-ed and you called for Maduro to be gone. You said, let's get one thing straight. There should no longer be any debate about Maduro's lack of democratic legitimacy. The Trump administration is right to put restoring Venezuelan democracy at the center of our approach to this crisis. A return to a stable democracy is in the interest of the Venezuelan people and the United States and the hemisphere. We don't know what's going to happen with regard to the civilian leadership there. Tom Cotton was just here saying that he hopes that there are democratic elections. Isn't that what you want?
Well, the rest of that article, right, was a criticism of President Trump's early moves to saber rattle around regime change.
1 second.
In 2019, you...
Yeah, because she doesn't force him to answer. It's the half journalist. She asks the question, then lets him just blow it off. But just to, some context, because I want to make a point. It's another link between Venezuela and Ukraine. So since the raid on the 3rd, he's been tweeting, and we're not going to show all those, but I'll just read a couple. The invasion of Venezuela has nothing to do with American security. Venezuela is not a security threat to the U.S. This is about making Trump's oil industry and Wall Street friends rich. Trump's foreign policy, the Middle East, Russia, Venezuela is fundamentally corrupt. So after she confronted him with what he said in 2019, which was an op-ed he wrote about how Trump should never have allowed Maduro to stay in power. He overthrew that election. We talked about it in the special episode. It was 72% for the opposition, who Schumer was talking about, sitting at I think it was State of the Union, or not State of the Union. It was some sort of special congressional meeting. And Maduro got 12%. Then he outlawed that. The winner's political party took over. So, to Murphy, it's like, sorry, dude, but, the bitch of history is that once you make it, you can't go back and change it. And the thing about him that I want to call out is, because it goes into what we're about to switch to Ukraine, is that he still needs to be held accountable for his involvement in the overthrow of the duly elected Ukrainian president, Viktor Yanukovych. So you might ask, how could a senator have been involved in that? Well, along with John McCain, he went to Maidan Square, which is Maidan stands for Independence Square in Ukrainian, in December of 2013. And he spoke at a rally to show U.S. support for the protesters who were USAID paid and George Soros NGO paid. And that's not all he did. He also coordinated with the neo-Nazis from the Svoboda Party, who were also being paid to conduct the actual overthrow that would take place 6 weeks later. So this is a guy, he's talking, and I just heard him on another interview this morning. He's talking about the illegality of regime change, yet he participated in the Obama and Biden administration's regime change color revolution, standing shoulder to shoulder, you see in the picture, with the Svoboda leader, the neo-Nazi leaders, while on stage, and then dined with him that night, and wrote the op-ed, about that one too. So he told the protesters, the U.S. stands with Ukraine. Any effort by this government to quell these protests will be met with American power. So imagine, again, using the Mexico scenario as an analogy, imagine if Russian and Chinese politicians of the level of McCain and Murphy flew to Mexico City for a rally that was clearly fake, just like we saw a bunch of old people, paid protesters, and rallied those people to overthrow the duly elected president of Mexico, and then threatened anyone who tried to stop it, to include the Mexican administration, to stop the protests with Chinese and Russian military power.
Yeah.
You can't make that up, but he did it. It's all on tape. It's in pictures. And so now you're seeing the patterns of relationship that link Ukraine and Venezuela to the globalists and their leftist allies in the U.S. They're related. The censorship industrial complex its heart is in Ukraine, and the election rigging op center heart is in Venezuela. And without those two things, globalists across the world, as well as the Democratic Party in America, cannot win, and has no chance based on their failed policies in the future. So
quite amazing.
Yeah. So now let's go to Ukraine real quick, and a quick update on the peace talks. Ukraine's latest statement is that they believe that they're at 90% progress on negotiations with America with their plan.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the key things to stay focused on. Ukraine and USA are not anywhere close to an agreement on territorial issues or control of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Kyiv and Washington have prepared a draft plan on security guarantees. However, no agreement there either. You've heard, Ukraine obviously wants U.S. forces on the ground, NATO forces on the ground. They want an Article 5 like guarantee from the U.S., and the U.S. doesn't want to do any of that. And finally, the question of where the new border will be is not even close to being resolved. So, at the Kremlin, Putin and other Russian leaders are doing what they've been doing the whole time, just recommitting themselves publicly to achieving the goals of the special military operation on the battlefield. They're convinced, as we talked about a week ago, that both Zelensky and the key European leaders have no interest in ending the war. And that's not, a hypothesis. They've stated as much. It's very clear they want this war to go through 2026.
Yes.
And basically, if you think about it from a human nature standpoint, they've lost. And anyone who looks at this battlefield, you don't even have to be objective, can't come with any other conclusion than that. And recent attacks on Russian civilians, the cafe that was bombed, 44 dead, and the attempt to assassinate Putin are designed to disrupt the peace process and divert the attention from their battlefield failures.
So this is just the U.S., the Democratic Party is urging Zelensky not to make peace.
Exactly.
So, there you go.
Yeah, that's the Kamala Harris thing?
Yeah. Run through this is this is
no, you don't have to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That you don't have to do that one yet.
Yeah.
So, again, so what on cue, the EU and US are just continue to be obsessed with keeping the war going.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you think about what's happened, they sold their souls to the devil on this thing. And, it's an emotional thing. And they know that if Zelensky falls, you might also wonder, why is Zelensky traveling freely? Usually someone who's a leader, unelected leader of a failing state is very, very conscientious about ever leaving the country, but he leaves with impunity. He's leaving again today.
Yeah.
But he's doing it because he knows they can't oust him. He doesn't know they can't kill him, but he doesn't believe they will. And I don't believe the EU will, but anything can happen. So Zelensky knows, just like Maduro, the money laundering, the kickbacks,
mm-hmm.
the military industrial complex, and the complex relationship and kickbacks from these NGOs. He also knows about the censorship industrial complex and let's not forget about the biolabs. One of my sources on the ground tells me that almost every time I talk, hey, Pete, don't forget about the biolabs. So that's still a huge aspect of this thing that's going to come out, much like what we're going to learn in Venezuela. So, you know,
that's a good point. I want to throw something up here. This is from 2020, an article we put out, and the title is Meet Alice, the DNC hacker that cleared Julian Assange. But anyway, she was part of a hacking group in Ukraine. It's a long article, but you can find it. We'll Meet Alice. She was part of Shalte Bolte, I think is what it was called, which was a hacking group. And we believe she's the one, or their group are the ones that hacked the DNC server, or at least was part of the whole plan. So it all came out of Ukraine back to 2020 is my point.
Yeah. So that's a great ad. And to our viewers, it's real.
Yeah.
We're not talking about something we don't know anything about. This isn't a hypothesis. There are massive buildings full of workers and servers that is the heart of the censorship industrial complex. And it's a safe zone. And it's the same, again, parallel to Venezuela. Venezuela is a safe zone. It's a country that can export and import narcotics, money, weapons. And of course, you know, its number one export is not oil, it's voting fraud and, you know, voting machine manipulation. So they're very much related. Back to Ukraine, you know, I just want to talk real quick on the battlefield, because it's always important to bring it up again. You know, start with we just had another body exchange, and everyone's been reporting on this for months. Mod Russia is so frustrated with it, they just came out and with a summary statement. So far, Russia's handed over 12,000 AFU bodies, while Ukraine has handed over less than 200, I think 196. So we've been saying the ratio is 39-1. It's actually 60-1. And last week, Zelensky was on Fox and told Brett Baer the same talking point that you're hearing from these retired geo influencer networks. And that's that Ukraine is not losing. And we say, well, how so? They say, well, the Russians have lost over 1 million men. And, you know, not only is there physical evidence that shows this is a, you know, flipped script of reality, but there's also the hacked database from Ministry of Defense Ukraine from 3 months back that showed names of 1.2 million Ukrainians dead. So, you know, horrific. I think, Todd, you have those casualty figures from last month?
I didn't. I have them, but I'm just going to read them.
Yeah, it's okay. They're basically 9,000 a week. Ukrainians were dying a week in December into first week or late December. So, you know, folks, 9,500 a week. Just think of that. That's almost as much as died in Vietnam in a month. So there are almost 40,000 dead in a month. 58,000 died in Vietnam. This is what this is about. It's not about politics. It's not about maybe we can find an answer. This is a humanitarian crisis that historians will look back and say, how did everyone just look the other way while this was going on? And I don't know what the answer is going to be, but I'm not going to join that party. And that's why you and I are on here every week. So
it's become a passion to really for humanity's sake, not necessarily anything else.
Yeah. And we're speaking for the people of Ukraine, where another poll was taken last week. And we've been telling you this for months, that 70, first it was 70, then 72. It's now 85% of Ukrainians wish the war to end. But folks, those Ukrainians might as well be Helen Keller. They have no voice. There's no one they can tell. There's no free press in Ukraine. There's no free protest. There's no free social media. Everything's controlled. And another data point from that survey was 63% of Ukrainians did not believe that 2026 will bring improvements to their lives. So, really sad also. But, for those people, whenever you want to stay motivated for how important this is that this war ends, and how important what President Trump is trying to do is just remember the people who are dying and their loved ones who have no voice. That's what this is about.
Totally. Totally.
So the final thing on Ukraine I want to talk about is what we're seeing is potential exposure of the CIA conducting illegal activity. So the New York Times put out another one of its exposés, and I call these are historical documents. The one they just put out was titled, "While the Pentagon Paused Ukraine, the CIA Runs the War." And the way New York Times is reporting this, you would think this was an expose, but it's not. It's actually a puff piece that's trying to make the reader think that the CIA are heroes for continuing to support Ukraine, while awful, stupid, alcoholic, MAGA Pete Hegseth, that's their terms, not mine, and that damn military pulled back like they were supposed to. And so the entire article, and it's a massive article, another 40 pagers, which I'll give you a few highlights of it right here. According to the New York Times, when U.S. military aid to Ukraine froze in March after Trump ordered the halt, the weapons stalled, intelligence sharing slowed, and the Pentagon pulled back, but the CIA didn't. Granted, what they termed as a carve-out, the agency warned the White House that full cutoff would endanger American officers already in Ukraine. They say that about every op in every country. I can tell you, I've heard that over and over. And so somehow they got an exemption to stay in Ukraine. But let me just tell you, and I'm giving you inside knowledge, Trump has no idea what those guys who are in there are actually doing, because they're working through their cutouts again. And remember, the CIA has had a neck and neck relationship with the neo-Nazis, ultranationalists in Ukraine since 1945. They've been paid by the agency. They were the initial behind the Iron Curtain primary intel sources for what was going on, and then repurposed for the Maidan protests, still on CIA payroll, and they still are today. And those relationships don't die quick. Those are etched over time. And that's what's carried on still today. And you and I said this, I think, on one of our first podcasts. What President Trump needs to do if he really wants to end the war is pull all Americans from instruments of national power, which is CIA, DEA, and military, out of Ukraine, as well as all U.S. Sponsored and affiliated NGOs. And that's the only way we're going to get rid of this under the carpet operations that are going on. And the article goes into huge detail, again, constantly trying to build up the agency. And I'll just read you one more. With kinetic activities off limits, meaning guns and bullets and military stuff, and turned over to the MI6, the reduced CIA presence in Ukraine pivoted to supplying targeting intelligence for hits on Russian war economy, oil refineries, explosive chemical plants, and Moscow's shadow fleets. Not as symbolic strikes. After early attempts fizzled due to Russian jamming, which we were warning these guys on very early, the CIA pivoted to attacking just key targets, fewer targets, but smarter ones. And then this is the New York Times say, result, Refineries offline for weeks, up to 75 million a day in estimated losses. Gas lines followed. Of course, all those are BS. It's almost impossible to cut Russia's refinery access and potential off. All they cut off was a small percentage of their foreign export refineries. All their domestic refineries continued pumping away and operating without any loss of either operational activity or revenue. There were no gas lines in Russia. The last gas lines were for some glitch in one small area of Russia, but there were never any gas lines. That you confirmed that, and I did too, from guys on the ground. So this is, again, the schizophrenia of the New York Times and their attempt. They still think there's a chance to build up, the sheep. That's us, we the people of this country, who they think are sheep. They still think there's time to convince us that we should be fighting the Russians, we should be supporting Ukraine, and that Trump is wrong. And to me, it shows again this belief that if we can just wait out another year, we can flip the script on this. Ukraine can win. We can get billions of dollars in military industrial revenues and line our pockets in the process. So, it's hard to watch. I recommend everyone, to read that article just to see it in real time. And again, I will reiterate, President Trump is not aware of what's going on the ground with the CIA and the extent of their involvement. And that is a fact. So, the point of all this, again, was just to show the linkage between Ukraine and Venezuela, and to show the linkage between the responses, which are just what we've been calling out: pure, audacious lies. I think the word gall is the best one I can come up with. It's they'll go in front of the camera like Chris Murphy did, and accuse Trump of stuff he's already done, regime change, and interfering with the affairs of a foreign government, which is a violation of a UN charter. He did it himself. So he has no credibility, but there's no care for that from either the EU or the Democratic Party. Their strategy is just keep lying, buy time, and maybe something good will happen.
So we dropped our signal there for a second. Sorry about that. We've got back in. I wanted to you mentioned the Nazi element. I want to just highlight something again that you highlighted. This is Chrystia Freeland, who's just been appointed. She was the Canadian finance minister. She's just been appointed in Ukraine. She's Ukrainian. And her whole family history here, that's, her relatives. She's totally a Nazi, granddaughter. And you have Kallas in the EU, who's also a Nazi granddaughter. So you have this whole Fourth Reich layer over all of this, which is extremely fascinating,
Wow. Yeah, it is. And, I know you reported on this. There's a massive Ukrainian Canadian population. They wield huge power. So, Canada has been more covert in their involvement. But they're still heavily involved. And, remember in the beginning, everyone was wondering, what is Canada so vehemently supportive of Ukraine for? They're not supportive of anyone in any war, but this is it right here. And this is real. Her grandfather killed Jews. And by the way, to add complexity to this, they are Jewish. And Freeland is, and these names are from that area. They, you've done more research on this than me. She's Freeland. Victoria Newland is the same thing. Her grandfather was also a neo-Nazi from Ukraine, the area they call Ukraine. I think it was Poland in World War II.
Yeah, and this is the top photo. There is the Galicia squadron of the SS during World War II in Western Ukraine, and below is the banners marching through Kiev.
Yeah.
Same banner. So it's there.
It is, and that's what you're supporting. If you're standing with Ukraine, you're literally standing with neo-Nazis. Todd said she joined the government. She's a special advisor to Zelensky. So you have another neo-Nazi as his special advisor, and she's, we can do a special episode on her. The things she said in the past, it's incredible. But the worst thing about it, back to the Ukrainian people who don't have a voice and the Ukrainian men in the military who are being slaughtered wholesale for no reason. These are the individuals who are making the decisions and weighing in on the potential for peace, which they have no intention. She would never support any peace plan with Russia. She's so anti-Russian. It's prejudicial. It's bigotry on a tectonic scale, and so there's no real chance of peace. Just by appointing her, Zelensky shows his intention.
So let me run this short clip from Collis.
It's a good one.
China is so much bigger economy than Russia is, with so much bigger military than Russia is. So if you're saying that you're not able to beat, that we collectively are not able to really pressure Russia so much that it would have an effect, because then how do you say that you're able to take on China with?
So that's
called a non sequitur. That's just bizarre. And folks, again, she's the number 2 person in the EU. So what we're trying to say here is, there's a madman steering the ship, and all the passengers can't get into the cabin. The cabin is barricaded, and there's an iceberg up ahead, and she's plowing that ship at full speed, and is ignoring the people pounding and screaming at the door, begging for help, begging for assistance. And, again, another parallel. That's what we just saw in Venezuela. And I will tell you, from the participants, no one was briefing. It was a big question mark. How will the Venezuelan people react? We've learned our lesson. Never try to predict that. And there wasn't any prediction that they would react positively. And certainly no one predicted the overwhelming positivity, the crying, the, wake up and everyone hanging their head out the window, screaming for joy. That's an amazing thing, but it shows you this coiled spring of frustration of what it's like being led by a madman, what it's like being on a ship where the captain is a madman and has barricaded themselves in the wheelhouse.
It's like that aircraft that crashed in Germany when the guy locked himself in the cockpit and people were trying to get in with the axe before they crashed into the ground. I mean, there, and you mentioned, I totally forgot my train of thought, but go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll try. No,
I think that's what we wanted to leave our viewers with, that the similarity between these two. And so you need to treat what you're hearing the same way, and don't buy into anything yet on Venezuela. Let the information keep coming out. Don't try to have an opinion about it. Make your own opinion. But the facts and the empirical facts are what you should prioritize. And you can still watch, just from all over the world, Venezuelans partying, celebrating, genuinely shedding tears of joy for what just happened. Venezuela is a great country. And if you, same thing to our viewers, if you want to go back, just go back to the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. Caracas was beautiful. They were still a productive country. But once socialism took over, it tanked that country. It's a mess. And the future right now is bright, but let's watch how this plays out with the vice president and the vice president of Venezuela taking over, and the other individuals, specifically the military, how they react in the coming days.
Outstanding, Pete. Thank you very much.
Yep. Take care, Todd.
We'll have you back next week. Take care. Awesome show.